Hi! Welcome to this part of my review featuring the Midnight Legacy of Darkness setting for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review, featuring this setting where evil rules supreme and being good is considered a sin, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about the Shadow in the North. 1,000 years ago, at the end of the Second Age, an alliance of elves, dwarves and humans defeated the armies of the Shadow in the North for the second time. The victory was a narrow and costly one, and Isrador continued to marshal his strength in preparation for the next battle. In the aftermath of this war, the undead began to plague the lands of Eredain in far greater numbers than they ever had before. Since the Sundering veiled the material realm from the celestial kingdom before the First Age, the souls of the dead have had no way to escape the mortal world. Sometimes these souls become tethered to their corpses, and the corpses eventually rise as undead creatures. These abominations, commonly called the Fel, are driven to feed on the flesh of sentient creatures to sustain their unnatural existence. It is believed that Isrador's vile magic was responsible for the first rise of the Fel. Isrador spent the first centuries of the Third Age cultivating his secret priesthood and sowing corruption amongst the free peoples. As predicted in ancient prophecies, 4 great heroes were corrupted by the Shadow and turned to his cause. The identities of these 4 remain a mystery to most, but they shattered the alliance that opposed Isrador and corrupted it from within. They became the Shadow's lieutenants, the Night Kings, and led his forces to victory over the peoples of Aryth 100 years ago. Today, the great elven forest is besieged by the abhorrent armies of the Night Kings. Legions of orcs and goblinkin encircle Erethdor, driving ever deeper into the heart of the ancestral wood. In the Caladrun Mountains, the dwarves who oppose Isrador have abandoned many of their mountain cities, retreating to the deep subterranean holdfasts built by their ancestors in the First Age. The armies of the Shadow have been drawn into a war of attrition, as thousands die pursuing the dwarves through their underground tunnels and vaults. In the Heartland, the once great kingdom of Erenland is a shattered ruin. The proud cities have been occupied by the forces of the Night Kings, and patrols from the Shadow's armies and mercenary slavers roam the countryside, killing, looting, and crushing any resistance. The great castles and keeps of the Dorns have been razed, and the last descendants of the Dornish royals lead a desperate guerrilla war against the ultimate triumph of the Shadow. The small towns and villages scattered across Eredain are ruled by petty tyrants who sell the blood and sweat of their people for the favor of the Night Kings. All but a few nomadic halfling tribes have been destroyed or enslaved by the minions of the Shadow. Some refugees have found temporary sanctuary with their elven kin in Erethdor, but most surviving halflings live lives of toil, misery, and despair. The gnomes continue to sail the Goyle and the Eren River, but now they are usually transporting troops and supplies for the Shadow's war effort. Many people think the gnomes are the worst kind of opportunists and collaborationists, but they do not realize that the gnomes use their relative freedom and autonomy to sabotage Isrador's advance. Upon the Shadow's fall from the celestial realm, a black veil crossed the sun, and all the lands of Aryth went dark. The darkness brought with it earthquakes, floods, and rains of fire. Foul demons trapped by the veil ravaged the lands. Forests burned, mountains shattered, and waters boiled away. Fae civilization was destroyed by a maelstrom of divine chaos. In time, the Shadow slowly recoiled from the sky, his dark tendrils retreating to the frozen north, where his shattered form would lie dormant, slumber, and in time regain his power. In Eredain, As the people struggled to recover from the darkness of the sundering, they looked to their gods and found only silence. Those benevolent beings, the ancient powers that had given birth to the Elthedar and guided them through the millennia, were gone. The abandoned, as the mortal followers of the gods came to be known, now believed that Isrador tricked his punishers and jailers. He was meant to be thrown down to the mortal realm, they say, banished from the higher planes. There he was meant to learn to suffer as only a mortal can suffer and, subsequently, to be destroyed by a great host of the servants and angels of the Lords of Light. But something went wrong. Isrador, they believe, twisted the magic with which the gods meant to imprison him, corrupting it with a tendril of his own being. He is, after all, corruption and evil incarnate. In doing so, he ensured that his banishment to the world of Arith spelled the doom of the precious mortals his fellow gods watched over. The suffering that was meant for Isrador became the suffering of the people of Arith, and the walls that were meant to keep Isrador forever locked away from the other planes became the same walls by which the other gods have been kept out. That barrier, which is known only as the Veil, prevents Isrador from returning to the heavens to spread his corruption, but it also prevents the Silent Ones from answering their followers' prayers or aiding them against the corrupt god. The Sundering has had other far-reaching effects on all of the creatures and beings of Arith, even those who have never claimed connection with the gods. The Fel and the Lust are manifestations of this cataclysm. Without access to a final resting place, the spirits of the dead have remained on Arith. The impenetrable veil between the mortal and celestial realms has affected beings from beyond Arith as well. Countless visitors from other planes of existence became trapped in the mortal realm when it was severed from the outer planes, including demons, angels, and beings of the elemental and outsider types. Regardless of the means, these beings became known as the Fallen, and they and the Lust joined the eternal powers native to Arith as the spirits of midnight. Those Fallen who were banished to Arith with Isrador, or caught in the maelstrom of the Sundering, arrived in Arith in the purest forms, as beings of thought and power, light and shadow. Caught without form or bodies of their own, they have been forced to exist on Arith as faceless spirits. Unlike other worlds, to which the astral and ethereal planes are joined, Arith is completely cut off from other planes and from many of the normal dwelling places of the unseen. Along with the souls of the dead and the spirits of visitors from elsewhere, Arith's unseen world is populated by powers that always have been and always will be on Arith. These are the eternal, and they have been worshipped as gods of place and spirits of nature, alien beings to supplicate and loved guardians to depend upon. After the Sundering, while the eternal continued their incomprehensible existences and the lost wailed in despair and delirium, the Fallen responded to their exile in several ways. Some hid away from the world, while others raged against it. Still, others now roam Arith on missions arcane and esoteric, some serving good, some serving evil, all attempting to find a way home. Those Fallen who wish to can take physical form, although there are always limits. A rare few in the last age possess the lore of conjuration and summoning, and can command these spirits to obey their will. For example, the most powerful druids speak with the spirits of nature, while the legates of the Order of Shadow command demons and other foul spirits from the lower planes. In the world of midnight, however, these are not nameless spirits called to the mortal realm to perform specific tasks before returning to their native domains. They are unique and powerful beings with distinct personalities, natures, and goals of their own. Their true names are words of power, guarded jealously by those who know them, and their service comes at a price few mortals are willing to pay. Many of the fallen are creatures of great power that haunt the wild places and the margins of civilization. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part, we are going to talk about the magic, the heroes, and the villains of Midnight. This setting is truly amazing, how it can weave all of those elements of tyrannical and oppressive evil against the will of those courageous individuals that still want to put up a fight, despite the bleakness of their situation. All of the different species are trying to fight back, but sadly, most of them have fallen. They have either been killed or imprisoned, or worse yet, they have become corrupt, sacrificing and selling their own peoples to the powers of darkness. It's also quite malicious and nefarious that Isrador is not only affecting the world of Arith, but also other planes of existence because of the interruption that occurs between planes. Thank you for watching this part of the review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending right through RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.